No VAR or VAR?
I would go no VAR. If VAR can tell me it's black or white, still so many grey areas.
Cleverley! His first goal for Manchester United!
How old were you when you went into the academy?
So I was playing for Bradford, which is where I'm from, and got scouted at 12. The academy football is so different to men's football. You learn the dark arts pretty quick.
So what are the dark arts?
Clever fouls, time wasting, you would introduce when someone's about 17, 18. At the end of the day, you've got 11 players trying to stop you win, and they're going to be doing it.
On Sir Alex, what were the takeaways from working under him?
His biggest word to the young players was concentration. Top level on the pitch. If you lose focus for 1 minute, these players will punish you. Being an up-and-coming football coach is like starting a business. There's similarities in the workload, commitment, sacrifice you have to put in. It's difficult to switch off.
If you could play one game again in your career, what would it be?
Probably the...
Tom, I am so excited for this. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
I'm going to hand over to the main man.
I think at the start, you've had an amazing career both playing and now into coaching. So it'd be great to get a little understanding and top line of what that's been like and where that's led you to at the moment.
Yeah, it's funny really because obviously as a young apprentice at Manchester United, there's a lot of similarities of what I'm going through now as a young coach, trying to work my way up the ladder again. So it all started at Man United's academy, which was unbelievable foundation to start from. You see so many players come out of that academy and have Premier League careers.
How old were you when you went into the academy?
So I was playing for Bradford, which is where I'm from, and got scouted at 12. So yeah, from 12 to 16, 17, you're doing 3-4 trips, an hour trips, back and forth after school, which was intense. You sort of lose a lot of your childhood. And then, yeah, you go sort of full-time and live in digs. Have you heard of the term digs?
No.
So that's where an apprentice at a football club will live with a host family. So you sort of get adopted for 2 years, yeah. But that's fun because all the players live on the same street.
Okay.
So on my street, we had like big players like Gerard Piqué and Danny Simpson and Johnny Evans, all within like a square mile of each other. So
All in digs?
All in digs, all with host families, yeah.
And who are the host families?
They obviously applied to the club, yeah, in an area of Manchester called Sale. They applied to the club, and these people do it for decades. Host that bunch of players.
I'm sorry, I'm fascinated. Do they have jobs?
Yeah.
So you use their job in terms of nurturing and maintaining you as the asset?
No, not really. They just hosters, feeders. They
look after you.
Yeah, they get paid for it from the club, and there's a minibus that literally goes. It's like 3 or 4 streets, picks all the lads up who can't drive, takes them to training, and that's digs.
How did your family feel about that?
Yes, it's a great learning experience.
Yeah.
The first time you leave home, yeah, you're surrounded by all your mates and colleagues. So yeah, it is. I don't think many people say that they don't like digs. It is. It's fun.
Can I ask you a weird question? In those early days when you're kind of maturing through the 12 to 17, 18 period, we've had guests on the show before say just how few people actually make it from that stage through to the top team and the first team. Did you always think, well, I'm different, I'm going to be the one that makes it through? And does everyone? Or are you guys aware, sitting in the coach on the way, shit, we might not make it to the first team?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is every young player is on different trajectories. So you might have someone who's physically developed, who starts there but plateaus, and you might have someone who's really small at 12, and that was more my path. So I didn't really excel till 17, really. So 12 to 16 was a struggle because physically I was just so far behind. There was August birthday, which is the youngest in a football and school year. Yeah, my path was I was sort of treading water up till 17, and then I started to flourish as I got physically bigger.
You must have had enough, though, in that kind of just talent perspective to make it through, because I'd imagine that Man United academy, when you're looking at academies in the country, is about as competitive as it gets.
Yeah, I think they could say I was an intelligent player. I had a fantastic attitude. Those two things, sort of, they had the patience with me to wait until I did have my growth spurt and then develop into a player who could handle it physically as well.
When you say you have a fantastic attitude, at that age, what does that mean in comparison to those that maybe you're looking at and don't?
Wanting to listen, wanting to take in every learning opportunity possible, always on time, doing jobs off the pitch. It's like even now, myself coaching under-18s team, you see the same people collecting all the equipment in at the end. You see the same people that are always on time. You see the same people who make eye contact when you're speaking. That's a big one for me. That was me as a kid. I was top of the class at doing all those things off the pitch.
Did that come from home? Was that the upbringing?
Yeah, I think, grew up with my mum in Bradford. She's quite a strict parent. But yeah, working class town, city. And I don't know where it actually comes from, but having a great grounding at Man United's academy, like strict, disciplined, and I think all those things combined into the work ethic that I had throughout my career.
You mentioned Danny Simpson, you mentioned Johnny Evans, Gerard Piqué. Could you tell the people around you who were going to be the successful ones that broke through when you look back with the benefit of hindsight? Could you tell the ones that would break through and those that wouldn't?
Yeah, it doesn't always work like that, to be honest. In my age group, the best two players were guys called Fabian Brandy, Sam Hewson, and they had sort of jobs in football, careers in football, but not top careers. And then sort of the late developers, it was me, Danny Drinkwater, went on to win Premier League titles. But then on the other hand, Danny Welbeck he was 2 years below me, and he was always the best player in his age group all the way through, and went on to win Premier Leagues. Sometimes it goes the way you're saying, where players with big reputations from 13, 14 do go on to be superstars, but sometimes it's the late developers. So
when did you get your first contract, and how much did you get paid with your first contract?
Yeah, so first contract was done with the boss. So he had no agents. He told you this is how much you're going to get paid, and that's the standard template for a first year pro. And I think that was about £600 a week.
You're still living in digs, I take it?
Yeah, still living in digs.
You can't afford to live anywhere else.
No. And that's what I thought was great at United. It was very much everyone was on equal money, so there was no sort of people getting big time or feet off the ground, and the manager oversaw everything. He was, when you get the term head coach now and the term manager, and he genuinely was he managed the whole football club top to bottom.
And that was until 18, that kind of contract. And then after that, would they start negotiating with the players they really wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, and then I went on loan, and you do well, and then you sort of, when you can see a pass to the first team, that's when the contracts change a little bit. They get a little bit more sexy, and sort of the variations. Obviously, if you sign a young player like Paul Pogba, he's going to be on more than maybe a local lad from Altrincham who's not got as big a reputation.
Those Altrincham lads are cheaper than Pogba's, aren't they? Sorry, what does it feel like to be sent out on loan? I always feel like, how does it feel? Is it okay? Do you feel like, oh, fuck?
Yeah, I think at a massive club like United, where they're going to be recruiting world superstars, 2-3 of them a year, it's very difficult for you. You've got to be sort of Danny Welbeck, young talent, to not have to do that. And even he ended up going to Preston and Sunderland. So it is literally like learning the ropes. You're not getting thrown at the deep end, having to play in front of 75,000 a week. You can go out to League One or the Championship, play in front of 10, 20,000, and sort of gradually make your way up. I mean, you've got to be very, very special talent to not have to go out on loan at one of these big clubs where the squads are 20, 25 international players.
It's tough though, because you're sent to some far-flung place that you haven't been to before. You're 19, 20, you've been living in digs for the last 2 years, and suddenly it's like, oh, welcome to Preston. Or
but I loved it. I mean, I went to Watford, great dressing room. I was 19, 20, started scoring, like living just outside of London. I absolutely loved it. It's like, I suppose it's like going to uni for a couple of years.
You've probably seen as, coming from Man U into teams that you're getting game time in.
Yeah.
Other players are looking at you going, looking to you to perform week in, week out as well. You're getting the starting slots that you're not going to get at home, and the experience you're going to pick up from that is probably detrimental to how you then kind of take that on in a Man United career.
Yeah, I mean, because academy football is so different to men's football. You learn the dark arts pretty quick, which you need to. People think, oh, Man City, fantastic football team, but their players are not only the best footballers, the most intelligent footballers, but they're the best at the dark arts of the game.
So what are the dark arts?
Clever fouls, time wasting, set pieces, winning duels.
Do you train dark arts? Like, is that part of coaching sessions?
Probably not at the age that I'm coaching now, but we start to introduce it. Yeah, it is a massive part of the game, and
I mean this nicely. Is that good? Like, officially training dark arts like time wasting.
We wouldn't coach time wasting. We would
game management.
Coach game management. Yeah. So if I wouldn't want someone taking a quick free kick if we were winning in the last 5 minutes. Clever fouls. You would introduce when someone's about 17, 18. This is part and parcel of it, because at the end of the day, you've got 11 players trying to stop you win, and they're going to be doing it. So it's dog eat dog. Yeah.
I was interested what it's like when you are away, and you say you loved it, and that kind of loan system really benefited you. But how much emphasis was put on like the social care from Man United of the players that they had out? Were you regularly kept in contact with? Did you feel still part of the club?
Yeah, 100%. I think it was about 6 weekly. Someone from the club would be in contact. They'd get every match report, even though if they weren't speaking to me, they'd know how I performed. I think 3 of the years that I was out on loan, they got to the Champions League final. I went to every Champions League final. So still felt massively part of the football club, even though... And I always felt like this isn't an exit strategy. This is like an entry strategy into the first team. And they made it very clear that that was the case.
What I was interested to ask was, kind of when you were coming through and you had that structure in the mid to late 2000s, where they were winning Champions Leagues, where they were winning Premier League titles, and you're a young player in that environment. Did that subconsciously or very consciously being in and around that environment change how you approached and improved those behaviours that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going into a dressing room full of people who have won 7, 8, 9 Premier Leagues and they've still got the same desire, it's just like, wow, I have to fall in line here. And that doesn't look the case at United now.
Do you think it's just United now, or do you think it's systematic of wider football and a different type of leadership or kind of aura that we saw in 15 or so years ago?
Yeah, society's changed. Young players are now the most important people, biggest assets at football clubs. They hold the power maybe before they're mature enough to hold it. Yeah, you've got to have a special figure like Pep to be able to keep every new signing just falls straight into place at City, and that's not a surprise with a leader like that.
What does he do to make that possible every time?
I think having success is a large part. If you want to be successful, you're going to buy into what that guy believes in because you trust him so much. You trust that he's the key to success. Same as United, Sir Alex. People would have signed for United for less money than gone to Chelsea or Arsenal for more.
So it's not an ability, it's a mindset.
Yeah, mindset. And players are hungry for success, for trophies, and they would sacrifice their egos for that.
It's a product of your environment, isn't it? When you go into that space, and as you say, you've got everyone pulling in that same direction, everyone knowing exactly what their jobs are, everyone buying into that winning mentality. You go in, and if you don't, you're immediately standing out on your own. Whether some of these clubs, and Man U have been massively challenged by it recently, well, a lot of top Chelsea significantly challenged by it. Spurs, where you bring in players, big money, big expectation, and it just doesn't quite work out. But then it doesn't quite work out consistently a few times over, and you're looking at it going, is that the player and the quality of the player, or is that the system that they're a part of?
I think it comes under the whole package. So I think for that dressing room sort of hierarchy, I think a group of 6 or 7 senior players is key. The manager can trust them to run the dressing room. So I think even though I said the young players are still the assets, I think they still need to understand that the older players are the examples. They run the dressing room, they make the rules, and you can see that just from how teams play on a Saturday, that their dressing room's in line or their dressing room's not in line.
What does it look like when it's not in line?
Body language. You can see players sort of the way they speak to each other on the pitch, fighting right till the end, not giving up. You just know the dressing rooms that have really got that are together, that there's a hierarchy that everyone respects. And from my experience, I was so lucky going into a dressing room full of gig skulls. They were like the silent leaders, and then as well as Carrick, and then you had Rio, Patrice Evra, Robin van Persie. Just probably missed a couple. Rooney, obviously. Just top players who all sort of made the young lads fall in line.
How is it one thing when you're coming up from an academy integrating in, but when a player like a Van Persie comes in from another big team and integration into that dressing room is slightly different from a young player, Is that a kind of different method they have to go through, or the players in that dressing room go through, or is it also just down to the person's ability to integrate themselves and be the right kind of character?
I think that's a little bit easier because you have the instant respect of how talented you are. So as a young player, you've probably got to earn your stripes, play maybe 50 games in the first team. I think that was like Gary Neville's marker. Once you played 50 in the first team, you sort of established. But a Van Persie comes straight in and has ultimate respect as a world-class player, and he proved that.
What was Sir Alex like towards the end of, I guess, his tenure at United, and how did that kind of translate into you guys as a team? Did you know that something was coming to kind of its conclusion and there was an extra onus to put that kind of final shine on his career, or was it just a relentless, indifferent change to how he'd always managed?
Yeah, relentless. If we didn't win the league that year, I don't know if it would have still gone. But he was relentless. The older players maybe have had their heads up, but the young guys, it came as complete surprise. Yeah, I think I was on the golf course and news was coming through. I think the boss is retiring.
How did you feel?
Yeah, I was gutted because he had the whole thing. I think David Gill as well, the chief exec, retired the same year. And the biggest two figures at the football club, I didn't see I thought success at that club was the norm. So I just thought a new manager will come in, we'll just keep churning out titles. I was gutted because everyone loved and respected Sir Alex, but I was excited for a new chapter for the club, and I never did I think that day we'll be sitting here 10 years later and they've not won a Premier League in that period of time. And that just shows you how important of a figure he was.
Can I ask, if we go back to the player side, I think you learn so much from the people you work alongside. You mentioned your skills, your gigs, your character. When you think about lessons from working with them and developing with them, what are the biggest leadership lessons you have from them, and any specifically from each?
Relentless, going back to that word. Never ever would they let success take their foot off the gas. So it was win Saturday, rest Sunday, straight back to work Monday like nothing happened. I remember the boss, we'd beat Wigan or someone 4-0. We came in fuming. He was fuming. He said, one of these years the title's going to be decided on goal difference, and that should have been 7 or 8 today. That's the year we lost it on goal difference. And at Sunderland away, the day we lost it to the famous Aguero goal, he basically just said, I told you, I've been telling you all this time, it's going to come down to goal difference one year.
Can I ask you, when you're playing alongside these people and you're still really young, was there ever a moment where, respectfully, you got a little bit big for your boots? You're playing with the best of the best, under the best manager ever in English football. Did you ever think yeah, I'm the shit?
Yeah, and that was where if I was to do it again, you would do things differently. So we go back to agents, and I'm still with my agent, and I have a great relationship with him, but as soon as you have a young player break into Man United's first team, they automatically think, right, money from every angle. So like websites, commercial deals, interviews. If I was to do it again, I would have just gone, whoa, just hold fire.
Did you get pushed into that commercial world pretty fast?
Yeah, too fast, and it wasn't for me. And
that was from outside the club, not through your...
That was outside the club, yeah.
Why wasn't it for you?
I should have just focused on football. My type of game, that was more of a team player. I was never going to be that poster boy, so I should have just reined it in. I think I rubbed a few of the fans up the wrong way of sort of a few of the commercials, like the website and stuff like that, which was a mistake if looking back now, because as soon as you hit bad form, that's when it can they turn pretty quick on the guy.
What specifically do you regret doing? Is there one where you're like, oh, that one I wouldn't do again?
I mean, I didn't do any commercial deals that I regret, but I think I set up a website, and for what? There was no monetization behind it. It was just a mistake, and a little bit of thinking, oh yeah, there's going to be money coming in for all angles, when young players should just, if you're a good footballer, you'll earn enough money, just have a bit of tunnel vision until you sort of get established more into your mid-20s.
Are the young players thinking about the money? Because it's plastered all over the papers, it's plastered all over the news sites. Are the young players kind of actually not as interested as the world is, or actually do they care and do they think about it?
No, listen, I think you've got a massive ratio of players that would still take trophies over money. I think the problems are when they start comparing them, comparing, he's at City and he's on more, or when I go to the England squad, I'm on this, but they're on that, and I think it gets a bit competitive in that world. So it's not like they're greedy for the money, but there's a bit of ego takes over, and I'm doing better than him, so why is he on more money and stuff like that? But I still think we've got a healthy ratio of lads who would take success over money.
There is a media obsession, right, with how much footballers get paid. And how they break that down when they actually look at a weekly pay packet. You mentioned there a bit of competition. Do you actually know what each other are on? Is it speculation throughout, the media where you pick this kind of information up? Because I'd imagine it's not something like a normal business that would get communicated outside of.
Nah, it's and you have some leagues in the world that have to document it, but no, it's completely rumour. Even lads who do talk about it a little bit around the dressing room, they'd probably say, I'm on a figure that's all my bonuses included if we get promoted, rather than just your basic salary.
I would always give less and then ask you to pay for lunch.
That's what the clever ones. But no, it's very rare that it becomes open knowledge. It's quite secretive.
Can I ask a really rude question? What was the most you got paid in a United salary?
I can't answer that, but it was, for someone who was winning Premier League titles, it was. Yeah, I think you'd be amazed how little in comparison it was.
Did you call your mum?
What, to say what?
Yeah. Check out this contract, mum.
No, I never really told my family how much I was earning. Obviously, my agent knew and probably told my parents, but yeah, even till the last few years at Watford, I don't think I ever said, Mum, I'm on this.
So your relationship with it was really left down to the people around you. They dealt with business. You focused on football.
Yeah, I learned that was the best way. I learned that there was nothing outside of football that you could become rich overnight with. That was probably the biggest lesson I've learned. So whether that's investing or property, or nothing comes overnight quickly.
What did the team around you look like? Who did you have in your kind of immediate entourage?
Yeah, so that was mum, dad, don't have brothers and sisters. So mum, dad, agent, sort of support network at football. You'd have. Every club has a player liaison. The foreign players need those the most. So when they come to a new country, they've got someone who sorts their council tax, road tax, car insurance, everything. So I'd include those in your support network. But mine was mum, dad, agent. Yeah, quite small.
And everything that they kind of brought to you, did you have like a process where some things would go through your parents rather than it coming to you, and the agent actually has a really good relationship with the families as well? Because I'd imagine it is almost like it's like a third parent. In the extent where they look after you.
100%. And as a young guy, you probably had things that you didn't want to tell your parents, and you tell your agent first. But yeah, I was quite an independent person. I wanted to know everything. I wanted to be in control of everything, which isn't always the best way. But
what's the most important thing that your agent's done for you?
Just honesty. He's been honest with me every time. He's said, "You're going to earn that. I'm going to earn that."
Is that unusual?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. You get some good agents, you get some not so good agents. Your agent is the most important to you when you need a move. So the class of '92 lads, Scholes, Neville, never move clubs, never need an agent. It becomes more important when your contract's running out and you sort a move's on the horizon. You don't want to be having to make all those calls. What's the best move for me? What's the best deal structure? So that's when they become important. And yeah, the two moves to Everton and then to Watford, he was massively important in.
Before we discuss the moves, we mentioned like lessons on relentlessness from kind of the people around you in the dressing room. On Sir Alex, what were the takeaways from working under him?
Discipline, focus was his biggest word to the young players was concentration. And that's when I go back to making eye contact, listening to meetings. That's a big learning platform for a footballer, is in the video meetings.
What are the video meetings?
Yeah, so they can be individual, where I will I actually clip the games myself. I'll bring an individual in, show him his clips from Saturday's game, and basically go through positives, negatives, where we can improve. I may show a striker clips of Haaland or Harry Kane, but more commonly is the team meeting. So I will show, on a Thursday, I'll show Saturday's opposition, their strengths, weaknesses, set pieces. For me, it's a way of getting as much learning as a physical training session without physically draining people. I really, really value the meetings, so I need you to focus. And that was one of Sir Alex's massive things, was at the top level on the pitch. If you lose focus for 1 minute, these players will punish you. He wanted you like tunnel vision focused, especially young players. He constantly reminded for 95 minutes and in the meetings. Yeah.
And so you have individual ones and then you have team ones as well, where you get together as a team and watch opposition ahead of a match?
Yeah, and then on a Monday I'll do a team analysis of the game. So I think the individual ones are very powerful, but there's me, my assistant, and 27 lads at the minute. So to do that for everyone is very difficult. So you sort of targeting people where you can see massive areas for improvement or massive standout things from the weekend's game. But
how was Sir Alex ever critical in that situation when you're doing it in front of a group? Was it and have you kind of taken his style on as someone that approached, I guess, the senior players and the young players together? Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't criticise hardly ever in front of the group. Maybe at half time when it was more emotional and he wanted a fast response in the second half. But in the team meetings, I can't remember him digging people out too much. It'd be more maybe tactical disagreements and stuff like that. But you two will know, publicly, hardly ever to the media criticised his players, which was a big.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's been you have a few things recently where managers do come out. It's one of the things that creates the most discussion in the media of, is it the right thing to do? Does it actually bring the best out of the players? Do you get the results that you need?
That's much better when the owners come in halfway through. That's the winning strategy.
Well, yeah, we had a few of those. But yeah, I think that kind of the debate that it generates around that. And I don't know, by the sounds of it, there's probably, I don't know if you'd feel like that there are some players maybe you need to do that with and others that you wouldn't do it with. But is it as simple as just say, actually keep everything private and put a face on when you're kind of facing something outside of the dressing room?
Yeah, it's difficult for the managers because the public want honesty. No one wants to get beat 2-3-0 and the come out and the manager says, I saw all the positives in the game. The public want honesty, and I think as a player I would not have minded my manager criticising the team. I think if you come out and criticise individuals, then it's a bit more, right, the player's going to take that personally and you've probably got a problem on your hands, as we see playing out with the Sancho Ten Hag thing. It's not good for the player, it's not good for the manager, it's not good for the club.
If you were a player in that dressing room now and a situation like that happens, is there like a conflict in how you kind of interact, I guess, with, let's say, Ten Hag and then Sancho? Because Sancho's your mate, Ten Hag's your boss. You probably understand maybe a bit of both sides. How do you approach that? Is there
I feel like I'm a very fair person, and it'd be rare that a manager would go first offence, come down as hard as Ten Hag has. This has probably been 2, 3, 4 times. I don't know the details. He's either been late, he's not trying in training, and what more can a manager do? Managers have to nip problems in the bud like that, as I'm sure you'll see in business. I think that's the best way of doing it. One chance, then nip it in the bud and sort of.
What do we think happens from here there?
I think that's the question everyone's kind of asking. I think if he does come out with an apology, does it integrate him back in? I think that's supposedly what they've said is what's needed to happen. But then there's a sincerity piece in there. Does he really feel sorry? He was so vehement in his denial that that he hadn't done what he was being accused of, that you're almost at an impasse.
It is. It's a difficult situation, and that's why I said nip it in the bud. You try and nip things in the bud before it gets to this, because it's a messy situation now. Because ultimately it might not be the manager's decision if he goes, because you've got an owner who's paid £75 million for a young player, and if the manager wants to just cut his losses, and that's not necessarily his decision. So yeah, it's
not envious of the situation, basically.
Not at all. No, and that's why I go back to, I don't think 10 years, 15 years ago, when you had that 6, 7 sort of godfathers of the dressing room, it just doesn't happen.
Can I ask you, speaking of that, criticising by manager, thing is criticising by public now, and that the class of 92 didn't have Twitter when they came off the field that said, Scholes was a shocker today. Does the social media real-time feedback get in the mindset of you when you were playing and players?
Certainly in my early 20s, yeah. It would literally take just one comment I was on a course yesterday with Gareth Southgate, and he said something, don't take criticism from someone you won't take advice from. So sort of listen to people who you need to listen to, and sort of cut out all the other noise. But in my early 20s, when social media was really snowballing, I found that difficult, and it was sort of, I was a Man United player living in Manchester in the Goldfish Bowl, and any bad performances I'd just want to stay indoors, and found it difficult to deal with the social media sort of stuff.
It's easy, isn't it? People say, oh, well, just don't read it or don't follow it, but I guess that is much easier said than done.
Oh, it's so hard. Do you see, there's this masochism of like, I seek out the shit comments about me and then I find them. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
fuck.
Yeah, you sort of do gravitate towards it.
Yeah.
It's one of those weird things. But yeah, like you said, a big club like that, you can't hide from it, and you've got to, I think, one, prepare as well as you can to give you that confidence that you are going to perform. And two, yeah, you've got to build up a real resilience quick.
What's the policy of phones in dressing rooms? It's something I've found quite interesting watching a few of these documentaries where you get in after a game and players seem literally to kind of, the phone is on. Is that almost to go on, see what the public reaction is to how they play? Were you in dressing rooms where there would be a ban for, you know? I've been in dressing rooms. It's difficult to police that one, because there are some players who before 10 minutes before we go out to warm up would like to sit watching their goals. I think João Pedro was one of them at Brighton. He'd like to watch his goals, watch his clips. That was on his phone. So it's hard to police. So for me, I don't think it works. I think you just have, sort of an open policy that when it's work time, it's work time. After the game, lads they like to go on socials or ring their wives or whatever straight away. I was more of, I like to embrace the sort of feeling of the dressing room if we've won or even if we've lost, sort of reflect on the performance. And
what was the best post and then worst post match dressing room?
Worst was after Aguero scored. We literally thought we went from winning a league to not winning a league in 2 minutes, and yeah, that was like the soul fell out of the dressing room. Probably beating Arsenal 8-2 was a good one. Reaching FA Cup final with Villa was a good one. Obviously winning the league, that was against Villa. And then Van Persie scored the volley. Yeah. The only thing, that would have probably been my best, but I was on the bench and I didn't get on, and it takes the shine off it a little bit.
What are the coach rides back like? Are they very quiet? Are they quite noisy and vibrant? What are they like? Yeah,
I mean, I've never gone on the days of sort of you get the beers on and stuff like that, but there's, at United, it was a game called SOCOM, which was an army game. It was brilliant for team morale. Brilliant. It was like Call of Duty. We were in teams of 6, 7. There'd be 6 at the back working as like an army unit against the other 6, and we still talk about it to this day. Some teams play Mario Kart. So there's cards, there's all stuff like that going on. I do enjoy the coach journeys, to be fair.
Uno seems to be what I always see.
Uno's big at the minute.
Is there like eating on the coach? I chatted to Flamini the other day, and he was like, people had a wide variance of what they consumed on the coach. Some healthy, some not so healthy. Yeah,
well, teams are lucky now. I mean, even championship teams travel on the coach with their chef with a kitchen on board. So it's massive part of sort of recovery, performance is the nutritional side, and teams are spoiled now.
So I'm getting niche, but coach, plane, train. Like, was it normally a plane when you could get away with it if you could reduce that time and then train to kind of the rest of it? Yeah,
it would be. Yeah, it would be plane, train, coach. I remember at Everton, we had a game 5:30 at Newcastle, Boxing Day, and we travelled up on the day from Liverpool to Newcastle plane, just because the manager didn't want to travel Christmas Day. So I think that's the finest I've ever cut
15 minutes.
Yeah, but it was, you couldn't risk going on the day because you get massive fines if you're late and stuff like that. So yeah, it was about a 20-minute flight on Boxing Day.
Oh, wait, so when you have a Saturday game, you go the day before?
Oh, whole time, yeah. And most clubs now will stay in a hotel Friday night for home games to make sure everyone's sleeping right, eating right, do a team meeting in the hotel, So yeah, most of the top clubs will stay in hotels even for home games.
Do you sleep well in like hotels? I thought
I've got 4 kids, mate. So yeah, it's a blessing for me.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay, I'd imagine you're not alone as well.
Yeah,
probably quite a few.
It is. It splits dressing rooms. The sort of single lads with no kids want to stay at home in their own environment. Sort of the lads with lots of kids, where even cooking healthy food is sort of a chore. They'd rather be in the hotel with their feet up, sort of having a little football quiz or watching the Friday night game. I used to love it.
On the like pre-match nutrition, what did that look like?
I was simple. I was like beans, eggs on toast. Yeah, you get superstitious players, but I wasn't really one of them.
What did they have? Yeah,
it'd just be the same. I think Dan Gosling at Watford was one. Or you get some lads who you see have the same thing, like chopped up avocado and things like that, the same pre-match. I can't remember any by name. But I was very much if I'm not hungry, I'm not going to eat too much. And
what a Chris, this was vegan bolognese or something.
Oh yeah.
I would be one of those guys. If we had a lunchtime kickoff, I could have pasta at 9 o'clock in the morning. I could do that.
Can we talk about the transfer process and what it's like when you move, particularly with Everton, because you've gone through loan moves away from Man U, but this is now a permanent move away from the club that you've been at since you were 12. How did that come about? When was that decision made in your head that it was the right time to actually go and develop elsewhere?
Yeah, first of all, it is kind of strange saying from 12 to 25, whatever it was, I was a Manchester United player. Even if I was on loan, you're still contracted to Manchester United. So that was a little bit strange. The Everton move was sort of years in the making. I went on loan to Wigan, played under Roberto Martinez, so kept in contact with him. Then Van Gaal came into United and was honest with me, saying there's not going to be much playing time for you. And for me, as a player, I respect that. You don't want to be strung along or just kept around to make the odd 10 minutes here and there. He was straight, looked at me straight, saying, "We're signing Blind and Schneiderlin. You can leave."
How was that?
Yeah, it's ruthless, but I liked it. It's honest, and I think that's what I'll take into hopefully a management career in the future, is just have those difficult conversations as soon as possible. So and then I started speaking to Roberto again. That move didn't actually materialise that year. I went to Villa on loan, got to the end of my contract and then signed for Everton on a free transfer. Things didn't really work out how I'd like to at Everton. Didn't hit top form. I remember at the time I got burgled and mentally I wasn't in a great space. And I just never found top form again until I came back to Watford.
Mentally struggled just because of the change in situation, or something like being burgled, which...
I don't think it was that, but I think just after I sort of did 3 years at United. The last year at United was a bit of a car crash, and then and for my mind I needed.
Why was it a car crash?
Well, we went from winning the league to 7th under Moyes. David Moyes, fantastic manager and stood the test of time, but didn't work. It was a massively stressful year for the players.
Can I ask, how did the club change with Sir Alex versus without?
You just, even if you drop 10% or you lose that 10% of focus or discipline, that can be the difference between 15, 20 points. Or what I will say is, for David Moyes, an incredibly tough set of fixtures to start off with. I think we went Swansea away, and then I think it was Spurs, Liverpool, Chelsea, something like that. And as soon as that, you sort of lose confidence in a couple of bad results, that just got out of hand. The media had started. Momentum like that's hard to turn around.
Yeah. Did the team stay with him, or was everyone kind of going, "Oh fuck, we miss Sir Alex"?
They weren't fully bought into it.
Yeah.
But that's difficult when players have known the same thing, for some of them for 10, 15 years.
Yeah. Is it hard also when the players are definitely bigger than the manager now? Like before, no matter who you are in that team, Sir Alex is your boss. When Moyes comes in, like if you're your Ferdinands or your Giggs or your Scholeses of the world, no, I'm a class of 92, mate.
I mean, these players were still massively professional.
Sure, but do you see what I mean? The weight changes.
Yeah. There was a dynamic change, and you see that at other clubs where players have been there longer than managers, and maybe a manager comes in with not so big a reputation. it's difficult to earn that respect.
You saw that then, did you, when you kind of moved as well, going into an Everton that had been under Moyes for over 10 years? Was there a similar kind of feeling of transition there?
That was the same, yeah. When a fan base have got such love for the outgoing manager, it's a difficult gig for the new manager. And Martinez did a fantastic job. He should have got Champions League the year before. I think the highest points tally without getting Champions League football. And then what I needed at that time was to go into a successful dressing room and have a successful year, just to have a weight lifted off my shoulders after the terrible year before. And that didn't happen. At Everton, we were bottom half, which was, for the squad we had, not good enough. The fans were demanding, which I think Everton fans are right up there with United as what they expect off their team, which has its positives and negatives. I think it can drive you over the line now and again, but sometimes it can sort of weigh the team down. And that year it weighed us down. And yeah, it was a difficult couple of years for me. Never really hit top form.
Was that then being kind of victims of your own success and the extent where you're competing for Champions League, you were outperforming what the expectation was, but then that redefines expectation because the fans now want you to make that Champions League slot.
Exactly that, yeah, and you see that now with Newcastle and Brighton, which is interesting. And then again, Martinez got sacked. Koeman came in the following season, played 6 months under Koeman, and had that honest chat again. It must be a Dutch thing.
That's good. Yeah. What did you do in Holland, Tom?
But yeah, he said you can leave on loan. I think it was Schneiderlin again came in. He followed me around, taking my spot. Anyway.
So where do I have to go to get away from this guy? At
the time I was speaking with Rafa at Newcastle, Brendan Rodgers at Celtic, and Watford.
Is the comms in those situations, is it between you and manager?
Yeah, so with Brendan and Rafa, I was speaking to them personally on the phone. With Watford, they went straight through my agent, and where I'd had such a successful year at Watford on loan, I thought, I love the surroundings there, love the people, and let's jump at the chance.
What do you tell yourself mind talk wise when it's not going to plan? Like, so go to the year at Everton when it's like it's not working, you got burgled, performances aren't there.
It's difficult because sort of you try and escape it a little bit, so you sort of, that's why players will gamble, because the players can't really get into drinking because it has its health sort of or performance negatives, so players you sort of look to escape, whereas now I'd think prepare better. I always feel like when I was prepared as well as I could, I was like armoured for any challenge, whereas back then you'd try and run from it, to be fair. The criticism, the speculation, the media pressure.
When did you feel most unprepared?
Yeah, probably in those 2 years. There's times where I felt like I can't pass it 10 yards.
Really?
That weren't for like lack of training or anything. It was just I was mentally not prepared to be on that stage.
Did you feel a pressure as well, I guess, because there was an expectation coming from a club like Man United to then go and deliver a certain type of performance or contribution to a dressing room?
Yeah, and that is one thing that I'd probably, if I could do it again, I'd change. Like, you can't please everyone, and you don't have to prove yourself to absolutely everyone. You're just not going to be some people's cup of tea in that. And yeah, I did feel the pressure of having to prove myself, and it wasn't till I came back to Watford where I sort of started to be myself again.
So you had some Celtic, great club, Newcastle, great club, Watford, great club. What are the things when you're making a move that you take into account as a player?
That's a great question. Celtic, absolutely fantastic club. I know that my best mate from school was a big Celtic fan, which was rare growing up in Bradford. I've known all their songs since like young, like fantastic club. Same with Newcastle. At the time, I wanted to stay in the Premier League. That played a massive part of it, rather than go up to Scotland. I'd be lying if location didn't play a part. Me and my wife had a place just outside of London, and I thought I can just move straight in there. That was that had a big part to play in it. And
so basically, your wife told you which one you'd choose.
Said London.
It takes a big man to sort of admit that.
You're still happily married, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's it.
But yeah, I mean, location, standard of football, quality of the squad.
In this day
and money, they're the key factors in a transfer. Yeah.
Can I ask, when you're making moves and when you're transferring, the thing that's so hard with football is like, yeah, you guys get paid a huge amount of money, but obviously, as everyone knows, it's a short lifespan. Unlike other careers where you get more in the latter parts of your career. Are footballers conscious enough about the compressed timeline of earnings for them and how they'll need to make it last, as they should be?
For me, it didn't hit home till about 27, 28. That's when it sort of hit home. We need to start thinking about sustainability now. And I do think the PFA have always been good to me.
And I mean, this is maybe, but I think about this, like, at what money point is that? Is that like 10 million? Is that like enough to like, yeah, we got enough here that we need to protect them?
I don't think there's a figure on it. I think how I worked it out was, this is what I spend a month. For some people, it might be a lot less attractive than others. I'll give you an example. Player I played with, Craig Cathcart, he was Man United product, done unbelievably well with his like investments and stuff like that, but lived to his means and didn't spend much on extravagant things, and he's reaping the benefits of that now. We can do better.
Who was on the flip side? Who was like, hey, check out my Bugatti. And it's like, dude, you scored an own goal on the weekend.
I don't want to chuck. I can't think of any, to be fair, but I made mistakes. So I do think we can.
What mistake did you make?
Oh, you pay sort of ridiculous insurance, car insurance on cars that you can afford, but you're paying insurance. That's where I think we can help young players in this money and in this age, is sort of tell you how your return on investment for doing £10,000 in Selfridges, or your return on potentially investing in a startup company or something like that. I think we don't sort of map out young players' financial spending as well as we could, or give them the advice. Or
I just think there's the education or the trust. I think also, like, from speaking to so many players, so many people approach them, and there's, like, as you said, there's a lack of transparency. We've brought in quite a few former guests into the deals that we do from 20 VC Fund, and everyone says, like, how much is your fee? And I'm like, dude, I'm putting in $1 million of my own money. Like, I'm not taking a fee. And they kind of don't get it. And so I think there's this lack of trust and lack of education.
Yeah, I'm with you. But I just think it's something we could educate a little bit better.
Would you do it? I mean, now you have the chance to, given your role today. Do you try and do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always careful of any comebacks that could happen from that sort of. I get that they're young lads and they've got parents, and I can sort of tell them my experiences, what did and didn't work.
It's also like when you're so young, like, just play well on the pitch, guys.
Yeah, they play well on the pitch. I get it. They have to enjoy themselves. Just treat yourself to a Prada top or a nice car or whatever, a couple of materialistic things, but seek good sort of investment advice, whether that be safe.
So if you were conscious of it at 27. You retired young at 33, right?
Yeah.
How... Can you tell us?
What did you do? Sorry, that's so rude of me. I'm just intrigued. What did you do when you were 27 then differently post being conscious? Like, did you start investing, buying property?
Yeah. Property, sort of cut back on designer clothing, modest cars. Obviously, I was gaining more children, so that had to be like school fees and stuff like that. Gambling, sort of casinos and stuff. Cut it out. Nothing crazy, just sensible. And then after, when you see sort of the cash pot increasing, then you can start thinking about investing. And I was always quite property sort of, not diverse. I was more all in property, and then later on in my career, introduced to people like Matt, who we both know, and sort of diversify into startups and things like that.
How's that gone? How are you kind of approaching that in the context of what you're doing?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm very much a rookie. But I love sort of reading up about the founders. I like investing in companies that I'm sort of passionate with. Or
have you set aside an amount of money for investing?
Yeah, I've got a figure, but I would sort of deviate from that if I really liked something, or if nothing came up that I sort of floated my boat. I would just keep that pot of money. But
number one rule when you're investing: always invest the same amount.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, but I really like this one. I promise you, you don't know. I don't know when it's so early.
Yeah.
You are just always 50k or 25k or 100k, whatever it is, always the same amount.
Yeah.
And also when your mate comes to you like, oh, I got this mate of a mate. Don't do that one.
Yeah.
I've seen that so many times.
Tips.
Unless he's unless he's Elon. Do you, as a group of athletes, now kind of come together and have conversations around this as well? Do you find like value in the collective and the security that you can take forward? We've seen a few funds or kind of collective ideas like Sequel, as you said with Matt, come up, where you get that kind of confidence in togetherness going into these deals.
It's become a more popular topic, more amongst the 30 plus age group in dressing rooms. I know Rio was he was a big startup investor, and he offered a lot of knowledge on this space. But it's nowhere near as common as it would be in sort of American dressing rooms.
Do you think that's because of the education systems and structures around sport or football, particularly in this country, and the pressure it puts on you at a young age to not necessarily get a lot of the understandings and exposures to this, where in the US you're going, through an education system right through to collegiate, then into professional sport, where your broader interests are maybe kind of integrated into you more?
Yeah.
Or is that unfair?
No, I would agree with that, and I would say the high-profile success stories they've had over there sort of like your Ashton Kutchers, and you have the basketballs in early investors in Uber and Starbucks and things like this. I think that when you have such high-profile cases, you sort of think, oh, I'll invest in startups. I'm an athlete. I've got a lot of capital. I'll invest in startups, but in this country, it's nowhere near got as much publicity. And yeah, it's obviously not the be all and end all, but it's something I wish I was introduced to earlier in my career.
Can I ask you one, which is like, you mentioned before, and I hope it's okay for me to ask, but you have 4 kids, first at 24. Whew, that's a lot, Tom. If you could advise yourself and call yourself up the night before your first and give yourself some advice, what would you say to yourself?
Take time for yourself. I've got 4 kids. I've got a very busy job now.
Is it possible?
I'd probably get a couple of hours at the end of each day and to have to myself. But
to yourself or to your wife? I mean, you then have to also have couple time.
Yeah, there's a lot of sacrifice at the minute. You'll know starting businesses. Being an up-and-coming football coach, it's like starting a business.
How so?
I'm learning. There's always something to be thinking about. Managing staff, there's similarities in the workload, commitment, sacrifice you have to put in. And I'm at that stage now. If I've got that spare 2 hours in an evening, I'm worrying about this player, or I'm worrying about that opposition, or I'm thinking he needs a bit of this tomorrow. And it's difficult to switch off. And yeah, if I was going back probably to this point now, in 10 years' time, I'd say make space for yourself. Get a round of golf in a week, or that's why I wear the Whoop, to make sure I am recovering and I'm not about to burn out.
Do you do fitness? So how does your own fitness routine look like? Because when you're a coach, it's kind of very easy to forget yourself.
Not great, yeah. I retired through a bad injury, so that has sort of hindered that stuff. But I could be doing more to keep fit at the minute. There's just not enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit? I'm really interested about the kind of coaching role and the motivations around that, and what I guess you're now building towards within football. Because it looks like when you leave football, maybe now you've got 3. If you want to do kind of investing, business, media, or coaching. How did you come to the conclusion that coaching was where you wanted to be? It's
probably the area that I can be myself. I like to help people. I'm obsessed with football. I'm passionate about winning. And yeah, those 3 things, football, coaching, it would really light my fire. So listen, I don't mind the media side of football. I don't enjoy it as much as being on the grass with 20 players and a bag of balls.
Sorry about that, yeah.
Investing, I'm nowhere near educated enough to make money. I'd rather sort of Matt and Alex look after my investments, or people like yourself. So yeah, that is where my expertise lies, is in trying to develop football players.
What would you like for it to become? Do you want to be a manager? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm at the exact right place where I need to be now, learning in the academy at a club that I've got a massive
Do you feel like you're growing as a coach?
Oh, 100% every day. Yeah, there's different challenges that are my first experiences on a daily basis now.
How's your style of coaching changed over time? Like, I'm an investor for a living. I look back and go, oh, I approach things very differently then, and I'm very different now. How's your style of coaching changed?
Well, it's only been 3 months, but you become more confident in yourself. You have a bit more of an aura. I'd like to think I'm quite calm and clear with my messages. That changes a little bit on a match day. I get sort of too involved in the game, and I'm in development phase of their careers now, but it's still sort of ingrained in me a little bit of we have to win, which I sort of is a good thing, but I need to get out more towards even if we've not won, but I can see the players I've learnt in this game. That's more of a success in under-18s football.
How much are the managers that you've worked under previously in your head when you're on that training pitch, and the way you've trained before and how they've taken the sessions against you having your own kind of individual style?
Yeah, you sort of nitpick things from each manager. Obviously, Sir Alex, my management. Nigel Pearson had a fantastic aura, Marco Silva tactically. I could go on, and every coach I've had, certainly since my late 20s, I've probably got a bank of about 20 sessions from each that I thought, wow, those sessions are good. I hand wrote them, and now I've digitally saved them in case I lost that. So yeah, probably something they don't know, but I've been stealing things off all of them.
Yeah, and I guess as a player as well, you know the ones that you didn't enjoy and you know why you didn't enjoy them. So when you're taking it into training and you want to get the best out of the players, you know how to integrate the right things.
Yeah, 100%. There is an element of what to do and what not to do, and some coaches have taught me that.
Yeah. How do you map out the plan when you think about your development from here? You know, now 3 months in, is it like I need to do this for 3 years with, you know, this team and this stage of development, and then I'll do 2 more years here? How do you project out the next 5 years in that kind of road to manager?
It's really difficult. Everyone tells you there's not a right or wrong. I was with Gareth Southgate yesterday. He retired as being a player at Middlesbrough, and the owner offered him the first team manager's job. So he's managing his teammates like overnight, and for him that obviously ended up working out, but he would probably say, no, I mean, for me now, the decision would be, do you stay in the academy for a number of years to gain experience? Do you try and progress at Watford? Do you go and work in a couple of years? Do you go and work under first team manager with vast experience? Do you go alone? These are all things I think you've got to just work hard. You need a little bit of luck.
We haven't touched on England. I just really want to touch on England. What it was like playing for your country and what that meant, being called up, let alone actually getting onto the pitch, and how important that is for players.
2 phone calls I can remember clear as day. The first time I got called up to the squad under Capello, it's not actually him that rings you, it's the team secretary. And then second one, the morning, Roy Hodgson says you'll be playing as number 10 for England tonight, and that was like, wow. Ring mum, ring dad, big moment.
Did you get nervous?
Yeah, they're the games I got the most nervous for. England games at Wembley. Nervous, yeah.
That's just because you felt a responsibility to so much more than just
exactly. Yeah, you've got a country, not just a club. It's a country, and yeah, some players just have that natural ability to
Were the other lads nervous, or
they didn't? Listen, at that time, it was like Ashley Cole, John Terry, Lampard, Gerrard, Rooney. It was, again, I've walked into a monster dressing room and started fairly well in my England career. I think we beat Italy, beat Moldova, and I was sort of been touted as an answer to an ageing midfield, and then just went pretty south with my form at United, and which is understandable. You're competing with the best midfielders in the country.
Which player was least like what you thought he would be? You know, before you meet someone, you're like, oh, I bet Lampard's very studious, or I bet Gerrard's very serious, or whatever. And then you meet them and they're total jokers, or they're totally opposite. Who was least like you thought they would be?
Do you know what? John Terry was sound. Yeah. He's obviously had a big rival with United players, but he was the one who got me right involved, introduced me to every staff member that I didn't know, told me where the dining room is. JT was really helped me settle in.
Leadership, right?
Yeah.
Going into that environment, recognising probably how you feel. You played in the Olympics as well, didn't you? The GB 2012.
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah.
I saw this. I watched you play at Wembley.
Yeah, that was. We played against UAE there. I think. Yeah.
It was great.
Again, unique. Something that I don't sort of, when I talk about my achievements, or I don't go Premier League winner, played for England, Olympian. It doesn't sort of cross your mind, but
I would do.
Yeah. I mean, it is.
You haven't gone for the tattoo.
No.
Here you go.
Would have been nice to get a medal. We lost in the quarter-final on penalties. We got 2 days in Olympic Village, which was fantastic experience. You had sort of Usain Bolt mixing with Ryan Giggs, mixing with Kobe Bryant at the time. Like, surreal.
Yeah.
Never happened anywhere else than the Olympic Village, or maybe some award ceremonies.
Were you and Kobe just hanging?
No.
Just shooting some hoops with my man Kobe.
But I remember everyone sort of give Giggsy the nod of world-class respect.
He was captain, wasn't he? Was he captain?
Yeah, I can't actually remember.
Thank you.
He must have been. Yeah. But yeah, that was that. We were based outside of the Olympic Village, which was disappointing. But the 2 days we spent in there was class.
It's just a different experience, isn't it? I guess that so much of your career, particularly in football, you can probably predict, or you know what it's like because it's the same kind of situation. Yeah. But something like that, when you get the opportunity to do it in England,
and for us, it was sort of surreal in the fact that it's a big tournament, but it's another game in our careers. Whereas these people you're surrounded with have built for 4 years for this one moment. Like, what if they're ill on the day? Or it was strange to see in that aspect that this is their absolute Mount Everest.
Did you see that with, just jumping back, players and how they value playing for the national team? Because I feel like sometimes, and I don't know if this is fair or not, you'll have a much better idea, but there is a kind of a movement to suggesting that players drop out of squads. They're not really that passionate now about necessarily playing, and it's a lot about the clubs. Does it have the same weight playing for England as it used to, in your eyes? Yeah,
and I think that's where Southgate's done a fantastic job. I think now more than ever in the last 20, 25 years, lads are dying to get in that squad, dying to get on the pitch. If they don't get on the pitch, they're dying to help the team. We are in an era where clubs pay players so much, and if players are 50-50 and stuff like that, then they may be persuaded to stay at home, rest, recover for the next club game. That's the world we live in.
I always, when I was younger, I always thought, you get injured, you're like, oh, great. Get 3 months with my feet up, getting paid full buck. This is awesome. And now I'm like, it's like absolute hell for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it is. You're missing so much. You lose out on so much ground with injuries. I know that more than anyone.
And loneliness and not being with the team. And,
exactly. It's not a nice place going into a workplace every day where you feel like the owner's looking at you like you're a waste of money, the manager's looking at you like you're a waste of space. Sort of, you get some managers who...
And you're like, mate, I get that from my marriage, I don't need it at work.
Exactly. Yeah, so listen, it's not a nice place to be. But going back to the thing, I think it's healthy right now that every player is very, very proud to get called up and represent.
Good.
Right, we're going to do a quick fire round. So we give a short statement, you give us your immediate thoughts. How does that sound?
Good.
Yeah, what's the secret to a happy marriage?
Good question. Is that one of the quick fires?
I don't know.
Right.
He always likes to go personal.
Yeah, teamwork.
That's a good answer. Can't argue with that. If you could change one thing in football now, what would it be?
Wow. That is a good question. It's a complex answer. I think VAR is right for decision making. I hate the fact that celebrating goals has it's took an edge off.
It's totally taken an edge off.
That one bit of like elation that fans and players live for, you have to sort of do it with a half-hearted, is this going to get checked?
It's the same for his fans as well, isn't it? I mean, you look at everyone in the game.
But then when we didn't have it, we were moaning that it was over the line and we should have VAR because it's ridiculous. It was obviously over the line. It's hard.
Yeah, I'm not.
If you were to go on
thought.
one side of the fence, which would you rather? No VAR or VAR?
I would go no VAR.
Would you?
I think it's still if VAR can tell me it's black or white, there's still so many grey areas. I don't think VAR knows what handball is, what handball isn't, which part of the body is offside, which it isn't. I think it was something like 98 point something of decisions were made correctly, or offside decisions were correct before VAR.
Really?
Yeah. We've changed a lot for the 1 point something percent.
We'll always do that, right? Because those are the ones that get the press, and when they cost someone a place in the Premier League, it was always.
Listen, I'm not against VAR. I think it's classy. You don't feel as hard done by decisions, but it has took that little bit of edge off the emotion.
What manager would you love to play under that you didn't play under?
Pep.
Didn't hold that one.
I speak to Stonesy, John Stones now, and what's he like? Like, tell me more about him, especially now I'm a coach. I speak to Danny Welbeck saying, tell me more about De Zerbi. Like,
what do they say about him?
Obviously, it's tactically he's genius, how much preparation he goes into, how much detail, how obsessed he is. But listen, I get probably 1% of what he's really like, and the influence he has on that club. You
said, like, when we asked you about Sir Alex, you were like, focus or commitment, concentration, and it's interesting seeing what the first things come to mind there are, because you know if you have intensity as one of those, there have been situations where I've noted Haaland scored a goal in the first half and done amazing. He comes on and he's literally berating him for something, and that's again in the public, not in the dressing room. People go, is that too much? Other people go, that's the genius of the man. I don't know how one balances the two.
Yeah,
but
I think my opinion on that is just you don't have to have an opinion on everything. Just embrace that we've got the greatest manager in the world in the Premier League, and just embrace him.
Sorry, what does Danny Welbeck say about De Zerbi?
Getting Welb's a private guy, so I don't want to give too much away. But just tactical stuff. How clear he is. He's this bit of football's like a bit of a game of chess to him. And Welb just says there's lads, really experienced players at Brighton that are seeing a whole new way of playing football, and for me that's just amazing, and it's bringing success.
If you could play one game again in your career, what would it be?
Probably the 8-2 against Arsenal. Yeah. After that game is the one time I've thought I'm living the dream.
Who's the best player you've ever played with? Who was like, holy shit, this is God-given talent?
Yeah, it's Scholes here. I think every United player would say it. I mean, Rooney's right up there, but Scholes, he was born with what he's got. You just can't develop that.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? When you look at the generation of players that he played in, and still, Chris Moore was exactly the same. He said,
yeah, his game intelligence.
What does he do now?
He's a pundit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very deadpan, kind of to the point. But, I mean,
it was amazing, mate. He 5'7", came in, didn't say much to people, trained like world-class genius every day, put his gear on, go home, do the same again. Like, didn't have an incredible body like Cristiano or someone like that, just absolute genius. Game intelligence and technique were the highest of levels.
Much, like, to the team?
Yeah, he spoke to Giggsy and the older ones more, but I had the joy of playing against him in training every day, and was jealous of how good he was.
I think I may know the answer to this one based on what you mentioned earlier, but what would you say was the biggest disappointment in football for you?
Yeah, I mean, that last day that we lost against City, but even on that day I thought success for this club's just never ending, so it's gonna happen. I've got a terrible record in FA Cup finals. I've lost 4-0 and 6-0, so They were pretty low.
Villa and Watford.
Yeah.
But remember what you said about your team now. It's about development, Tom.
Oh yeah, no, not when you get to that level. It's a winning. It's a results business when you get to first team level, and they work with this.
Did you notice a change in that kind of approach to a game of that magnitude for clubs that aren't used to being in those situations, or was it a situation of just beaten by very good teams on?
Yeah, both instances. I thought prepared well, enjoyed the day. Once at Villa, we actually stayed at Wembley Hilton. That was incredible. So like you'd see the fans walking down Wembley Way from like early in the morning. I got a real buzz for that game. Just beaten by Ozil in his prime, Alexis in his prime, Walcott, beaten by a good Arsenal team.
Listen, Tom, I've absolutely loved this. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a joy.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Really enjoyed it.